So who's going to rule the new economy? Now, pending, a complete collapse, disaster, where we're running around like cavemen and it's Mad Max, there will be a group of people, actually two groups of people, that rule the new economy. But first, I want to touch on something that I've talked about now for some time, and it's talking about the difference between the new economic paradigm, which is the 21st century economic paradigm, and the old economic paradigm. This is something that, politicians, I think on purpose, they live in this realm. And in fact, the majority of Americans and people around the world are living in the old economic paradigm. What does the old economic paradigm look like? Well, the number one point is people trade their time for money. That's part of the old economic paradigm. Now, this used to work, but why doesn't it work today? Well, it doesn't work today because of things like inflation. When you reach the end of the road of an economy or of a system, we know that inflation begins to really get rampant. So in inflation, and even in hyperinflation, trading your time for money is no good, because what are the money you're getting for that time is being eaten up by inflation. The other thing too is that it's a global economy today. So, the 20th century old economic paradigm of trading your time for money, that used to work well. If you used to build cars for GM, well, back in the 1950s and 60s, that worked great until the Japanese came along, and now today the Chinese are even coming along, and all these other manufacturers. In the last 10 years, over 60,000 manufacturing plants in America have just boomed. They're gone. They're overseas now. And not just manufacturing plants, but think of call centers. As much as you hate, dealing with the Indian call center or that call center in the Philippines, companies are doing that because it's much cheaper, and the money they trade for those people's time is much less than what they would trade, what the expectation levels are here in America for workers, or workers in the West for that matter. Number two, part of the old economic paradigm is that you work for wages instead of profits. Again, this is kind of like number one. You trade your time for money, or you work for wages instead of profits. Not going to work out in the 21st century economy. Might get you by, but you won't be part of ruling the new economy, right? You're not going to be at the top of the new economy. And look, some people could give a crap about being at the top of the economy. And, that might work for you. I believe that we should be in a position, or position ourselves, to have the maximum amount of resources so we can have the maximum amount of flexibility. And it just so happens, like it or not, we live in a world where it requires you to have money to have the maximum amount of resources so that you can have the maximum amount of flexibility. The third point that I think most people in this audience, and I should have prefaced this video with, it's probably going to piss a lot of people off, but it just is what it is. I believe this is truth, so I'm going to tell it to you. You might not like it, might hurt your feelings, but hopefully, you'll not so much care about the messenger or whatever. You'll listen to the message and go do your own research. But number three is go to college and get a good job. I think this has pretty much been disproven. In the age of inflation, where now a college education is up by hundreds of a percent. I mean, people used to be able in the 1970s and 80s go to college, have a part-time job, and pay for college. That's what my mother did. That's what other people in my family did. Today, you have to take on hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get a college education that likely, I'm sorry, but if you are a graduate with a degree in Native American pottery, not going to probably help you pay off that couple $100,000 that you racked up in debt. So going to college and getting a good job is part of the old economic paradigm. Will not work. Okay, now that's not to say that if you're going to become a specialist in something, that going to college is all bad. I mean, there's things that going to college and getting the degree will help you. And certainly if you have that opportunity to go without having the hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, more power to you. But I look at someone for my inspiration like Ben Franklin, who at 17 was running a printing press. I mean, he didn't go to college. He just, boom, went right into it. In fact, he was apprenticing at 15 years old. Today, we refer to people in college as college kids. They're adults. I mean, in our founders' age, these people would have been an apprentice or working somewhere at 15, 16 years old, learning something. All right? So now, who will rule the new economy? Now, again, you may not like this. I don't like certain aspects of it, but I think it's just a reality. Number one, who's going to rule the economy? The first group are the globalists. And this is obvious, right? They're the ones who are shaping much of what is happening, like it or not. Whether it's the ruling class, the mega banks, or the super elites. I would include in this category people like George Soros, Bill Gates, people like Warren Buffett, and to a certain extent, people like Barack Obama and Al Gore and George Bush, people that are part of that political elite, that ruling class. They're going to run stuff and they're going to be ruling the economy, or one group, because they're the ones who are creating all the systems. Who's creating the systems now in response, or the legislation, or the whatever the hell they're going to do in response to what's happening in Cyprus? Who's creating the response to what happens if there's another economic meltdown, or when there is another economic meltdown in America? It's going to be the mega banks, the super elite, and the ruling class. They're the ones who are going to do it. And, most people can't play by the rules that these people have set up. Now, the second group that are part of the new economic paradigm, the 21st century economic system, and I believe this is where you can fit in, right? Entrepreneurs. That's who's going to rule the new economic paradigm. Now, look, let me be really clear, because, there's going to be people out there that are going to be working in factories, that are going to be working and doing, and, working at something, in my opinion, is 100 times better than sitting at home and having government take care of you. But who am I to judge, right? That's my opinion. You might agree with that. You might say that that's just totally irresponsible and stupid. But the truth is that you sit around at home, or, that obviously is slavery. If you're dependent on systems and government to take care of you, if that's the case for you for, a short period of time while you get back on your feet, more power to you. I have no problem with that. But there is a class that are dependent 100% on government, in fact, look to government for every solution of their life. That, to me, is slavery. But the truth is that, or I should say that, people that are out there working, busting their ass, barely getting by, it's not that that's bad or not good. I mean, they're doing the best that they can. I'm just saying that they're going to be destroyed by inflation, likely. And they're in the old economic paradigm. The second group that I think you could fall into, because I doubt any of my audience or me fall into this first group. But the second group of entrepreneurs, inventors, visionaries, investors, farmers, people that have high skills, this is a group that we can fall into. I mean, entrepreneurs are just people that take risk and, don't have an expectation. There's no for sure definitive expectation on what that end result's going to be. They take risk and they go for it. And it could be in any type of field. It could be farming. It could be automotive. It could be a new website idea. It could be anything. Investors. I mean, that could be real estate investors. It could be gold and silver investors. It could be anybody who studies the markets, the Rick Rules of the world, the Peter Schiffs of the world, the Doug Caseys of the world, that Doug Casey being a great speculator. And the old adage is, if you want to accumulate, you need to speculate. Well, he's proven that, billions of times over. Visionaries that say, you know what, there's a new way of doing this. The world is rapidly changing. That's why most people are falling into the trap of the old economic paradigm, and they're listening to the people that are shaping the new economic paradigm, telling them that we're going to bring back those jobs that went over to China. We're going to start manufacturing more cars here at home, when we know that's a lie. That's not going to happen, because we live in a new global economy. The rules have fundamentally changed. And, if you think they've changed in just the first 13 years of the 21st century, you haven't seen anything yet, because technology and so many other things are changing it so rapidly and so quickly, specifically technology. But entrepreneurs who will rule the new economy, farmers. I mean, there's less than 3% of people that are going to college today are studying agriculture. In fact, I saw some statistics last year that there used to be something like a few million farmers to feed like 50 to 100 million Americans. This was, a certain time period ago. Today, there's less than 3 million farmers feeding over 300 million Americans. There's not enough farmers. And, many of you have probably heard Jim Rogers talk about how the average farmer is like in his late 50s, and in the next 10 years will be in the late 60s. Or I think it might be they're in their late 60s now, will be in their late 70s in the next 10 years. Farming is a tremendous opportunity, as is, mining and becoming a geologist. These are skills because of the fact that we have not enough collateral. Entrepreneurs, inventors, investors, visionaries, farmers, geologists, people with real skills, right? Because we don't fall into this category, and the likelihood is we probably won't. But we can fall into the entrepreneur category, and that, in my opinion, are the people that will rule the new economy. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out FabianForLiberty.com. I'm Fabian for Liberty. Thanks for watching. I'm out.